do not go into any of these bars or clubs or whatever, because they will rob you blind, okay? And just out of nowhere, this guy like sneaks up on me and steals my shoe, literally just grabs it off my foot and starts cleaning one of my shoes. Alrighty, hello everyone. Long time no talk, eh? The reason for that is because I have been traveling across Southeast Asia for the last several months, as I said I was going to do. It's kind of like, you know, Neo from The Matrix, right? Imagine if, like, after the third installment, Neo had returned to regular life and someone comes up to him that he hasn't seen in like 10 years and is like, "So what have you been doing with yourself these past few years, Neo?" And Neo's like, "Well, it's kind of a bit of a difficult story to tell. I wouldn't quite know where to begin, you know?" That's pretty much how I feel at the moment. I've been traveling across Southeast Asia, right? Like, it started, I did a month in Bali, which I told you about. But I came home for a couple of weeks because I had to get dental surgery, which my dumbass didn't even think of the idea that I could get that same surgery for a fraction of the price while in Indonesia. Like, these are the little things that, like, as you travel, you learn. Being the westernized man that I was, the old me, you know, the me from, like, a previous, what feels like a previous lifetime ago that hadn't traveled. I didn't even think of that. It's like, yeah, of course I've got to go home to, like, Australia to get dental surgery. Couldn't trust a dentist in Southeast Asia. But, you know, that's what living in the West for too long does, is it softens you. It turns you into, like, a domesticated animal. And that's what I was trying not to be anymore. And in fact, that's why I started off. Like, after I left Australia, I started by going to Saigon, Ho Chi Minh, which is it's a city of about 15 million people in Vietnam. It is cataclysmically large. Like, I was in Bangkok for 3 weeks recently, and Bangkok felt like coming home to the West, you know, coming home to a medium-sized city after Saigon. Saigon was the last census they did back in 2009, I think it was, had about 10 million people. But their best estimates is that it now has around 15 million people. And it's not like an organized city. It's a kind of sprawl that goes for, like, it's so large. There is no photo or video that could do it justice. You just have to, like, travel it. Right, like, what you're seeing now is from YouTube. Someone took video of, like, a tour of the nice part of the city, but this is just like the fancy part they want the tourist to see. The rest of the city is just, and I'm not putting the country down, but it is, like, just a quarter of a step above abject poverty by Western standards. I mean, by Western standards, they're below the poverty line, but, like, by Vietnam standards, they're just getting by in this maze, this huge maze of, like, little tiny streets with 12 people living to a a hole in the wall. I can't describe it. You have to, like, not just go there for a few days and visit the tourist areas. You have to spend a month in, like, one of the side districts to get a feel for what it's like there. Me being a Western tourist, I had a really nice apartment because everything's dirt cheap in Southeast Asia. Not so much Thailand, where I am now, but Vietnam. You know, the price of everything is just like a tenth of what it is in the West. This is my apartment that I rented. As you can see, I've got some counterfeit goodies there, some counterfeit bling. Most of this stuff costs like $10. Unfortunately, my view of the city was obstructed by this ugly construction site. But yeah, if you look out over the corner, like, if you look out just through the corner, you can just even get a scope of how big this city is. Like, I know I keep going on about it, but right now I'm in Bangkok. This is just like some footage of Bangkok, and it all just seems so tame, so Western. There's not that many scooters. The roads are like walkable. I don't feel like I'm on the brink of catching hepatitis A. It's just kind of like, it's almost like Japan almost. It's just so modern and clean. It's nearly as big as Saigon, but it feels about a quarter of the size because it's just so tame, And Bangkok is, Bangkok used to be known as like the good times city, but even though it's got some rough areas, all in all, it's just pretty G-rated, really. So I bought a selfie stick when I was in Pattaya, and here's me on the beach trying to kind of awkwardly get used to using it and trying to look natural. I wanted to do a video, but it was just way too noisy with the beach and the traffic and everything. So yeah, like I said, I spent about 3 weeks or so in Saigon. Then I headed up to Da Nang, and then eventually Hanoi, which is the capital of Vietnam, where I was there for like a week. And then I headed over across through Laos to Bangkok, where I spent a couple of weeks. And then I went down to Phuket, and then back up to Bangkok to Pattaya. And yeah, it's just been like in every place I visited, something crazy has happened. Like something like profound that I'll never forget has happened in every place that I've been to, man. Like, even just the flight over to Ho Chi Minh was cooked. It was like 10 hours. I'd had a good seat on the plane, like a comfortable seat in the emergency exit aisle, but the guy that I'd been sitting next to, purely by fate, was like an extrovert, and he spent the entire flight, 10 hours, talking to me and asking me questions, and I had to force myself to be polite, which became very difficult in those last couple of hours. He did not sleep. He just talked to me the whole time. So after putting up with him for like 10 hours, I get off. I have to spend an hour and a half through like this third world customs process, which took forever. That airport in Saigon is notorious for its slowness. And then, of course, finally you make it out onto the street. You make it out of the international airport onto, like, the taxi area. And you get bombarded, like, totally bombarded with these, like, fake taxi drivers trying to scam you. Affectionately known by travelers as the taxi mafia. Anyway, so I eventually find my way to the actual legit taxi ramp. But the first legitimate taxi driver I meet doesn't speak any English, and I don't have Google Translate because I don't have internet access. I don't have any data, and I can't use Google Maps. So you're just left, speaking to someone who can't even say hello in English, and none of the legit taxi drivers can speak English. Once I got my SIM card on like the second day, I used Google Translate almost for the entirety of my trip to Vietnam, even at like fast food, even at Starbucks, even at the hotel on the very first night that I arrived. I booked a really cheap hotel, way too cheap. I should have just, splashed out a bit more. But my first week, I booked a hotel from Booking.com that was pretty low budget. And because I arrived there in the middle of the night, they had like their most useless reception guy on, and he couldn't speak any English. So I had to use his phone to do Google Translate. It was rough, man. It was so rough. And nearly every day, just something totally weird happened. It was the ultimate culture shock. Like, Bali was like a little bit of a culture shock, but not really, because it's so touristy and westernized. But yeah, I don't know. Listening to somebody else talk about their travel experience is probably a little bit like watching someone else play a video game. So I won't go on about it too much, but it's suffice to say that Vietnam is the exact opposite of Australia and America and like all Western countries. Like, probably one of the the worst elements of living in Australia is the nanny state, right? Like, for example, there's security cameras everywhere, so as soon as you leave the house, you're going to be on someone's camera. You can't You can't even buy like codeine over the counter because like the sheeple can't be trusted, is seems to be the attitude. Like they even have a tax on soda in Australia to dissuade people from drinking sugary beverages. You know, the pack of cigarettes costs like $30 and you can't smoke anywhere in public just about. It's just crazy. It's so bland. It's like styrofoam is living in Australia. Like it's nice. It's pretty and everything, and it's clean and organized, but it's so sterile. And for better or for worse, Vietnam is just the inverse of that. It's the exact opposite. The guy on the plane actually invited me out to go to like the clubbing district of downtown Saigon, and I was like, whatever, you know. So I went along for a couple of hours, but the music was so loud it gave me a bit of a headache. So I stopped at the all-night pharmacy to buy some paracetamol, but of course the guy didn't speak any English and the word paracetamol didn't seem to mean anything to him. So I kind of motioned to my head that I had a headache, and he reaches under the counter and pulls out codeine, OxyContin, and a drug called tramadol, which I hadn't even heard of, and sold it to me for like $1 US. And it wasn't counterfeit either, I could tell. So yeah, it was just, and maybe it was counterfeit, you know, maybe there are some counterfeit drugs there. That's like the fun of it all, is that you don't know what you're getting. It's a lot more dangerous. Like I said, there were several times where I nearly died in freaking Vietnam. But yeah, it was the opposite of Australia, I'll give it that. Anyway, so after Saigon, I went up to Da Nang via the train, and then I went to Hanoi, where I was in Hanoi for a week. That was an interesting experience in and of itself, but yeah, I think I was kind of over Vietnam by that point, and I was looking forward to going to Thailand. Anyway, so I headed over through Laos, and eventually I arrived in Bangkok, and the night that I arrived in Bangkok, there was a massive thunderstorm. Anyway, next up I went to Pattaya, or Pattaya, however it's pronounced. It's about maybe an hour or two south of Bangkok. Pattaya is pretty famous. It's basically a giant red light district. Now, I had just come from Bangkok, which definitely has a red light district, particularly in Sukhumvit, where I was staying. But once you get to Pattaya, it's on an all new level. Like, Pattaya Beach is massive. It goes for tens of miles. And as you walk up the beach, I'm not kidding, there are freelancers constantly in the thousands, like no more than 10 feet apart, for mile after mile after mile. And this is the quiet part of Pattaya. The beach is the quiet part. Once you go into the central part of Pattaya, where all the clubs are and the girly bars, they are in the tens of thousands. I cannot explain it to you. Okay, it's like everywhere else I went to. You just have to like go there to see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it definitely it didn't just live up to my expectations of it being a red light district, because I almost gave Pattaya a pass. I was like, you know, I'll just stay in Bangkok. But I was like, why not? You know, I'll go see what all the fuss is about. And yeah, it basically lived up to all of my expectations of it being a seedy red light district, you know. It's a big place though. Like once you leave Pattaya beach area and you head down the coastline, it's mostly just like families and, you know, water parks and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, my straight up advice for this video is that if you are a guy and you go to a place like Pattaya, just go straight to the beach and pay a freelancer if you are looking for some red light activity. Do not go into any of these bars or clubs or whatever, because they will rob you blind. Okay, you will pay more in drinks alone at these places than you will for a girl, you know, down at the beach who's offering you $25 for a short time, $50 for an hour and a half. Like, honestly, the girls at the beach are just there to have a transaction, and they're not there to rob you, by and large. Okay, you should still put every last cent that you don't plan to spend on her in your lockbox in your hotel. But all in all, you know, you're pretty much having an honest transaction. Those girly bars, they're like for guys over 50 that want like company, like they want to feel like they're 25-year-old chads. It's pretty pathetic, right? Like, not only are you deluding yourself by going to these bars and paying girls to pretend like they find you attractive, but you're paying a lot more than you would if you just went to the beach and just kind of owned it, right? And just paid, 30-40 bucks for an hour and just, done the life affirming thing and just brought a girl back to your hotel and, yeah, just accept the situation for what it is, but whatever. Actually, speaking of nearly getting killed, I almost got ripped to shreds by Thai street dogs, because if you go to Southeast Asia, there's these dogs everywhere. Now, normally these dogs are pretty friendly. Like, for the most part, they don't give people any trouble. You see these dogs at the beach, and they have this little technique. I saw it in Bali where they dig themselves a bed, basically. Anyway, so I was walking down Pattaya Beach like at 2 o'clock in the morning, and at first I was where like all the tourists are, right? But then I eventually walked like past the tourist area and came to like a local beach where it was like, really run down and rubbish everywhere and like old fishing boats and everything. And I was like, probably time to head back. Anyway, all of a sudden I heard like a dog bark in my direction, and then another couple of adjoining barks. And then out of nowhere, a whole bunch of these dogs just came running at me. I don't know how many of them there were, like at least 5. And they were like surrounding me and doing that thing that like the like hyenas do, or those dogs in Africa, those striped dogs in Africa, where they surround you and like 3 of them are biting at your ankles while 3 of them attack you front on. So as soon as you turn around, you've got 3 dogs at your heels. And it was, I wasn't terrified because they weren't big dogs, but there were so many of them. And yeah, they got me pretty good. I had to go get a rabies shot at the local doctor because I must have been bitten, at least 10 times. Like, again, fairly lightly through my the cargo pants that I was wearing. But it was an experience. We'll put it that way. So yeah, just those little things that can happen, man. That's why it's so important to get health insurance when you travel. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Geomaxing in Southeast Asia is super easy. It's basically like shooting fish in a barrel, honestly. Like, obviously that varies country to country. Like, for example, Vietnam and Thailand both gave me a similar number of matches, right? But Vietnam is much more conservative, right? Like, I got a lot of matches in Vietnam, but all of them wanted to be girlfriend, boyfriend, or nothing else. It wasn't really fertile ground for like holiday flings, right? Like, it was doable, but it was, you'll get yourself unmatched a lot more when you tell them that you're just traveling, okay? Whereas in Thailand, it was that they were way more into like, oh, you're a foreigner, you're just here for like a couple of weeks, great, when can we meet? In Thailand they were much more receptive to it. So it varies from country to country, basically. Like, even I was surprised by how easy it is, because someone said to me, like, if you're a dude in your late 30s, like, wouldn't you just, when you go over there, wouldn't you get lots of matches, but only with women in your own sort of age group, right? And that wasn't the case for me, okay? I put my true age of 37 and I matched 20 to 29, and I got lots of matches. So I'm sure it tapers off, right? Like, in, the more deeper into your 40s you put, it'll start to taper off, and, hence why all the over 50s go to Pattaya and just pay for it directly. But yeah, I suppose it comes down to several things. Like, are you attracted in general? Like, do you find Southeast Asian women attractive? That's an important question. Like, after several months of being here, for me, it's kind of like, I would say that I am, but it's kind of like how after you've had like a savory dinner, right? Like, after you've had a pizza, you crave some ice cream, you crave something sweet. You don't crave more pizza. Like, I've had enough for now, personally. Like, I'm not saying that I would have success, but if I was to go geomaxing, I think I'd maybe try like Eastern Europe or something. It's time for something different. I've had enough of Southeast. I've had enough of the cuisine here in Southeast Asia, and I'm not talking about the food either. But yeah, there was a lot of other stuff that happened along the way, like just some funny little misadventures that happened, like the various scams that you run into all across Southeast Asia, right? Like, even though in reality the standard of living is going up so high in the West that in many ways the people living in these developing countries oftentimes have it easier, but irrespective of that, you are perceived as being this like wealthy millionaire by comparison to them. And as a result, people will see you as a walking ATM, right? Like the local people in these countries are usually very friendly, but they're not the people that you run into. You normally run into the touts, right? The people trying to make money off you. Like, there are literally millions of friendly people in Vietnam, but they're all doing their own thing, right? The very friendly people aren't walking around the tourist district going up to random people and asking them how their day is. Okay, the people trying to scam you are doing that, and I bumped into a few of them. Like, one particular scam that I wasn't familiar with is the shoe shiner scam. Unfortunately, I don't have any video footage of it of my own, but people on YouTube have posted their videos of this little scam. What happens is, now there's different variations of it, but the variation that happened to me is I sat down at a park bench in downtown Saigon, and just out of nowhere, this guy like sneaks up on me and steals my shoe, literally just grabs it off my foot and starts cleaning one of my shoes. Now, it's pretty easy to avoid scams in Southeast Asia by following the simple rule, which is that if someone solicits you, comes up to you, starts talking to you, you just ignore them, right? You don't talk to anybody, okay, that talks to you, okay? If you want something, you buy it. You don't let anyone try and talk to you or sell to you, and you'll be okay. And, throughout most of my time in Southeast Asia, I was okay. Like, I know I got overcharged a couple of times. I probably got charged tourist prices here and there and didn't bargain properly at the market, but that's neither here nor there. I never got scammed. But yeah, I did run into this awkward situation where this guy, this street tout, he grabbed my shoe and just started cleaning it. I didn't ask him. I was about to throw these shoes away, and he just grabs these old shoes that I was about to throw away in the next, 2 days or so, starts cleaning it, and then points and tries to get my other shoe. And it's annoying because you're in for a confrontation either way if you decide that you're not going to pay them, because if you don't give him your other shoe, then he's going to hold the other one to hostage, right? And if you do give him your other shoe, then he's going to feel like he's justified in demanding money from you. So it's like it's catch-22, what do you do? It's like a stray cat, right? If you feed a stray cat, it's going to keep coming back for food. So my philosophy is that this guy's not going to get any money out of me, because if I pay him, if I reward him for stealing my shoe, like, his intimidation tactics work, then he's just going to do it to more tourists and give Vietnam a bad name, and his next victim might be a lone female traveler, right? Like, I knew I could deal with him, but the next people he does it to might be more intimidated. So anyway, long story short, he cleaned the other shoe. If he had just asked, maybe I would have given him money. He did spend 5 minutes cleaning my shoe, but it was unsolicited, right? Like, if a really attractive girl comes up to you and starts, making out with you unsolicited, you might have wanted it, but it is, by definition, an assault, even if you had have wanted it, right? So hopefully you get my point, right? Anyway, a confrontation did ensue, because as soon as he gave me my other shoe back that was perfectly clean, I got up and walked away, and he started following me and started yelling at me very loudly to give him money. Okay, so I paused my recording to to edit in the background slides to show you some examples from YouTube, since some of the footage I wasn't recording footage the whole time, so I just found examples from YouTube. And I'm 95 to 99% sure that this guy is literally the guy that did it to me. The guy who made this video said it happened in the exact same spot across the road from the Saigon Center that it happened to me. And this guy looks remarkably similar, right? Like, the guy that did it to me, I remember him being a little bit more disheveled and maybe a little bit, like, skinnier, you know? I remember thinking, like, I could take him on. This guy looks maybe a little bit bigger in the arms, but it was the same place, the same, like, buzz cut. I'm pretty sure it's him. And the MO is the same. Like, the way the guy in this video described it, it was exactly the same sort of MO. Like, grabbed his shoe, you know, wouldn't take no for an answer, became super aggressive when the guy didn't want to hand over too much money. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. I just remember him being maybe a little bit more disheveled, but yeah, I'm almost certain it's him. If it's not, then it's his close lookalike who operates in the exact same location with the same MO. Anyway, I'll wrap up the video here right now because the traffic outside is getting louder as Friday night ensues, because it's Friday here in Bangkok and I can hear the tuk-tuks outside, but they're engines. I don't know if you can hear them, but it's quite distracting. You know, the one sort of final point I'll make is, for those of you that have, you know, followed the history of my channels, you know that despite my history of black pillism, I've never been overly sympathetic to the rotters, right? You know, the people that, you know, the DBDR type people who, you know, they always have an excuse for why they can't do something. And I know that's kind of rich coming from me, but I've never been an advocate. I've never been overly sympathetic to the people who view the glass as half empty. Now, if your glass is fully empty, I can understand, but there's so many guys out there who have a half full glass, but they bitch that it's not full, right? There's so many of them, and I just don't have any sympathy for it, right? Like, you'll have a guy who's 25 and he's like a 5 out of 10, and he's complaining, and I understand the problems. I understand that the glass is half empty. But you'll give some solid advice, like, why don't you go traveling? And they respond with, like, the doomer memes, like, oh yeah, just quit your job, bro, and go traveling. Just travel, bro. And it's like, I don't know, I'm not going to get into it in this video. You know, it suffice to say that whatever little respect I had for those guys in the past has completely vanished. Like, I remember I saw a video, I think it was Street Max, or I can't remember who did it, but someone made a video on this guy who went mongering in Thailand, who was in like his 20s, and he arrived, and I think he went to Pattaya, and rather than like filming himself mongering, he got into his hotel and he checked in, and he had like a mental breakdown, like, I have to resort to paying for freelancers in Southeast Asia, man. Like, how did it get to this? And then he ended up just like spending his entire trip in his hotel, like having a breakdown, right? And I remember being like a little bit sympathetic. Like, I don't know, maybe it's easy to get like that when you travel, you're on the other side of the world. Like, maybe it's easy to have an existential crisis when you're that far from home. But what I discovered, like in my own case, is, you know, there were a couple of moments, like towards the end of my trip in Vietnam, when it had been several weeks since I had heard anyone speak English naturally, and I was just I was in the mood to talk to someone back home, and just a bit kind of, you know, just having a kind of a downish kind of day. Like, I spent the day in my apartment just watching Netflix and not doing too much, right? But what I did is I forced myself to think about the positive. What do I have to look forward to? Like, hey, I'm going to Thailand in 3 days, brand new country. And lo and behold, about a week after that sort of that downish kind of day, I'm at my hotel in like a rooftop in Bangkok with this girl that I'd met on Tinder, and we're in the shade next to the pool, and I blink, and I'm like, this is it. This is level 3 happiness that I talked about in my first video, you know? Like I'd been in level 2 happiness the whole trip, but I was like, wait, this is one of those level 3 moments, and it's wonderful. And I just, it's hard to put into words, but I have less respect than I ever did for those guys that that just give up on themselves because they had a bad day or a bad week, or the glass is half empty, whatever. Anyway, that is the story of my travel for now. Well, that's some of the story. A lot more happened, but I think I shall wrap it up here. One thing that was kind of interesting that I found happening is how you lose your perspective on how old you are because you're in a different country and you're always like a little bit kind of like lost. You kind of feel young, like you feel like a kid because you don't know where you're headed. You know, you're not in some routine that you have back in your home country, but it's like you're not that young. It's kind of, I found it to be quite a weird, disorientating. You know, like when you wake up in a hotel in the middle of the night and you forget where you are. The same thing happens with who you are. Like you're walking down the street and you're like, wait, who am I again? Like, you know, what character am I playing in this sea of characters? Very surreal. Anyway, thanks for listening.